Hello, everybody. And this is, I guess, kind of part two of my thinking when it comes to using vintage lenses on a mirrorless camera. I've come out today, I'm down in the Baltic Triangle, which has always been a happy hunting ground for me. Behind me, the building originally was the Higson's/Keynes Brewery, and the whole complex has now been converted into a range of markets and eateries and bars, many of which will be absolutely bouncing later on today, because today is the day that England have at last managed to find their way into the final of the European Football Championship, facing Spain. So places like this are going to be absolutely bouncing. Anyway, it's early in the morning now, and I have come out with the Sony A7 with just two lenses today. And I'm going to tell you first of all about the Tokina 28mm 2.8, which I have used previously. I used it on my visit down to the old quay at Neston, and very happy with it. And my most recent acquisition, and I did put a post on the community tab about this, is the Industar 61 from a Fed4 rangefinder camera. So this is M39 or Leica screw thread lens, designed for a rangefinder. So straight away you can see the difference in thickness between the adapters. I'll put some stills up for you to give you a more accurate comparison and idea. So why have I invested in yet another vintage lens, but this time one designed for a rangefinder camera? Well, the seagulls are going crazy. Gulls. A couple of things have sprung to my attention since using these vintage lenses on, in particular, the A7, and I've got questions in my head. So I think as we walk around, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the issues that I'm experiencing, and ask you to give me your opinions. You never know. We might all learn something from this one. Anyway, let's go on my travels. There, so from here you get a better idea of the original Victorian building, the Higson's Brewery, as it originally was, and the tank room right next door to it. Well, it's part of the original building, of course. What am I saying, idiot? The Red Brick Market. Well, now I've come inside the Red Brick Market, and it's full of vintage clothing stalls, bric-a-brac, you name it. A couple of great signs which I think could probably describe my photography. One's just in here. Dead good? Maybe. There's one next door which might be more accurate. Fabulous shite. Give me the choice. Which sign would apply to my photography? Well, here we are. Might as well make use of the seating outside the Yellow Submarine. Red Brick Market, quite good actually in there, to be fair. And apologies if I upset anybody with my language, but I just think those two signs are a bit of fun. So back to the topic in question. I'll probably show you some images taken not just with the Industar and the 28mm Tokina, but also the Helios 44-2, which I've used briefly on the Sony. I haven't yet been able to hit the sweet spot. To get that swirly bokeh, you need to be the correct distance away from your subject, and then also to have the background a certain distance behind your subject before you can get that swirl effect. And I haven't nailed that yet. But as regards the lens itself, very happy with it. You know, as a £20 lens, brilliant. If I had to pay £60 for one, not sure it's worth that kind of money, but who am I to say? Coming back to the image issues that I've been having, something that has struck me when I have been opening up each image from every lens, as far as I can tell, is the amount of vignetting that I'm getting. Now, vignetting is a complicated subject. If we leave aside the fact that these are vintage lenses adapted to work on a modern mirrorless camera, well, relatively modern, leaving that aside, lenses will vignette either at wide open apertures, which not a lot of people realize, and certainly when you stop them right down. So a fast lens, let's say a 1.4, if you shoot it wide open, the chances are that optically you will get some vignetting. Whether you see it in the image or not is an entirely different topic. But you will also get vignetting when you stop it right down to f16, which is what most people are familiar with. And there's an analogy which somebody wrote on the internet, which I saw quite recently, which is to say that if you picture a basketball going through the hoop, it passes through the hoop much more easily when you dunk it straight down from above, rather than throwing it at an angle when it bounces around the circumference of the hoop before eventually falling through. So that's the same principle that we're talking about when we discuss vignetting at wide open apertures. Now that's optical vignetting. There's also mechanical vignetting, which is very simple and straightforward. It happens when you fit, for example, a normal lens hood onto a wide angle lens. You get black corners. The same thing applies, mechanical vignetting, when you try using an APS-C lens, a crop sensor lens, on a full frame body without reconfiguring the body to shoot in crop mode. Again, you will get the lens won't be able to cover the whole of the sensor. So that's optical and mechanical vignetting. And the third one is pixel vignetting, where you have to appreciate that the sensor in your camera is a certain dimension. Let's stick with full frame because it's what I'm using today. So your sensor is 24 millimeters by 36 millimeters. It's a rectangular shape, obviously, but you also have to appreciate that it has depth. Okay, because each of your pixel sensors is in, if you like, a little well. So if you, an analogy, again, sorry to use analogies, but if you imagine light coming into your waste paper basket in the office, if the light is strong sunlight coming in at an angle, it will never illuminate the bottom of your waste paper basket. So that's the same principle that we're talking about. Now, of course, manufacturers like Sony, Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Panasonic, Fuji, they all compensate for that. The algorithms within inside the computer will deal with obvious signs of vignetting. Chances are that they will always have correction factors built in for their own specific lenses. But the issue that I'm having has made me think a little bit deeper about this issue. So we'll talk about it more as we walk on. So what's the issue I've been experiencing and running through my mind? Well, quite apart from the fact that modern digital cameras and their manufacturers built in algorithms correct for things like lens vignetting and distortion, leaving that aside, I'm also thinking to myself, well, hang on a minute. I'm damn sure that with all of the lenses I've used so far, and that's 15 basically, all of those 15 express vignetting. All of those 15 display vignetting even. And I'm pretty certain that if I'd been shooting them with a 35mm film camera and got the same amount of vignetting, I would certainly notice it, and would have noticed it in days gone by when I was shooting film. So what's going on? Is there something else to this equation? And what I would like you guys to think about, and maybe give me your opinions on it, because I'm going to learn as much from you as I have off the internet, in particular with regard to the Sony E-mount. Now, physically, when you look at the front of the A7, or indeed any E-mount full-frame camera, you can see just how tight the sensor itself is to the circular opening for the mount. And if I put a slide up on the screen now to compare the Sony E-mount with the Nikon Z or Z mount, there is a tremendous difference. The Nikon mount is substantially larger in diameter than the Sony E. So is that having an effect on the vignetting? And that's the reason why I bought the Industar rangefinder lens, the Industar 61. Because I thought, well, at least using a rangefinder lens, it means that the adapter is a lot thinner, and maybe it will cut down on the vignetting. Now, as we speak, the answer to that is no. Again, I'm still getting vignetting. Now, don't get me wrong, don't start putting complaints in the comments saying I don't know what I'm talking about. Obviously, every software package that you care to mention allows for reducing lens vignetting and distortion, either automatically or manually. So all this that I'm talking about, I guess you can say is hypothetical, theoretical. Does it really matter? Maybe not, but it's just something that I've been thinking about, and I'm curious to know what effect in particular, what effect the slightly smaller Sony E-mount lens throat dimension has on this problem of vignetting. Of course, the other way to look at it is that most of us photographers like to quite often add some vignetting to our images afterwards, just to concentrate the viewer's attention on the main subject. So I guess, maybe this is a stupid video, I don't know, but it's one aimed at getting some feedback from you guys. Let me know your thoughts. Have you experienced the same amount of vignetting that I am doing? And if so, is it across various lenses or one or two in particular? I'm dying to find out. So from our very own graffiti-covered skate park here in the Baltic Triangle area of Liverpool, it's a favourite stomping ground of mine. I'm going to say, firstly, that I'll put some stills up on the other lenses that I've been using recently. There should be 4 or 5 different lenses for you to have a look at and compare the images. Let me know what you think. I'm happy with all of them, I'll be perfectly frank. And I'll put some images up of the lenses themselves so that you know which each one looks like. Because somebody pulled me up on that in the last vintage lens video, quite rightly too. Anyway, from a fairly grey and overcast Liverpool, I'm going to say enjoy your photography, and I'll see you all soon for another enthralling video. Bye for now.